Okay, let's begin. Let's begin the class. I want to point out that today, in my opinion, is tonight's the best class of this course. In my opinion, because we really get a taste of Talmudic thinking, understanding really how the Talmud will think, and I think it's very, very enjoyable. So I want to start off with they say a story about a Jewish guy who's on the train, and a Kazakh comes over to him, and the Kazakh tells the Jew, he says, why is it, or how is it that Jews are so smart? So the Jew says, it's because we eat salted herring. That's our trick. So the Kazakh says, I gotta try some. So the Jew, he realizes he has an opportunity. He says, I actually have a jar in my suitcase. If you want some, $10, I'll sell it to you. So the Kazakh says, absolutely. Right now, he pulls that $10 bill. He hands him the jar. He's all excited. The Kazakh downs the jar of herring, and he's waiting for the wisdom to kick in. At the next stop, they had it's a few minute stop where people are able to get out and stretch their legs, and there's even some shops over there. So he goes out and he's checking out some of the shops, and he comes running back into the train. He starts screaming at the Jew. He says, they sell the exact same kosher schmaltz, salted herring for $5. You sold to me for $10. So the Jew looks at him and says, the wisdom's kicking in already. But the real reason, or I don't know the real reason, one of the reasons why Jews have always somehow were able to outsmart everyone else was because of the way the Talmud teaches us to think. And tonight we're really going to get a taste of that. But I want to point out that it's not so easy. Talmudic thinking, as we've already went through some scenarios, it's not always the easiest to follow and understand. It can get very, very deep. And the truth is, that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point. It's supposed to be hard. In fact, it says in text number 1, page 173, from the Talmud from Tractate of Megillah, Rabbi Yitzchak said as follows. Rabbi Yitzchak said, if a person tells you, I toiled but did not find success, do not believe them. If he said, I did not toil but found success, don't believe him. If he says, I toiled and I found success, believe him. In other words, in order to really be successful at something, you have to put in work. If you didn't put in any work and I just made it successful, it's not real success. Winning the lottery is not considered success. It just isn't. It's not your work. It's not your achievement. It's just something, it was a gift. You can never really appreciate it. The Torah is difficult. The Torah is very difficult to understand. But the reason it's difficult to understand, let's read in text number 2. This is from Rabbi Yosef Chaim of Baghdad, a Sephardi rabbi. He writes as follows, page 174. God gave us the Torah as a closed book, secured with multiple chains, so that it requires much toil to discover the ideas hidden within it. This ensures that we do not study the Torah casually, but rather out of great love. For one who studies casually does not wish to exert or trouble themselves, whereas one who studies out of love for the material will exert much effort. The idea is that when you put in effort into something, when you reap the benefits of the reward, it's so much more enjoyable. It's so much more pleasurable. You actually get it. Like, wow, now I understand it. I get it. It makes sense. So when God gave us the Torah, He wanted us to really feel the love of the Torah. Feel that we're really part of understanding the Torah. Not that you just, here's a book, read it, move on. And that's why the real successful people know that you gotta put in the work. People think you pull a book off the shelf, Think and Grow Rich, and then you read it, then you're going to be rich. Like, that's not how it works. You got to put in a lot of effort, a lot of work. And the same is true with Torah study. And that's what we're talking about over here. when it comes to Torah study, the Talmud specifically is very difficult to understand, but that's really the point. That's really the point. So, what I want to tell you guys is we're not going to go through this something too difficult tonight, but I do want to point out that there's a value in it being a little bit difficult. We have to try and exert ourselves intellectually and try and understand and keep track of what's going on. So there's a concept, and there's two concepts I want to introduce before we get started, really, and that is, number one, a concept called Haut Cup. Anyone ever heard of the concept called Haut Cup? It's a Yiddish saying, Haut Cup. In English or in Hebrew? In Yiddish, I mean. In English, H-A-L-T, that's one word, K-U-P.
Something with the head.
Yeah, something with the head. Haut Cup means to hold, literally means to hold head. Hold head. What it means is you got to stay focused. Sometimes the Talmud will give a statement and then ask a question on that statement. And then the Gemara will ask a question on the question of the statement. And then give an answer to the question on the question of the statement. And then give a question on the answer and the question of the question of the statement. And you gotta keep track of the whole scenario. And it can get very, very confusing sometimes, because sometimes the Gemara will answer the question, but you don't realize that we just refuted the original question by answering the question that we questioned the question with. So sometimes you gotta keep track of everything going on. So just to give you an example of something we learned earlier, we said when we spoke about the issue with eating on the eve of Passover, we had these two opinions, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, and we were discussing which one of them was the author, which one said the statement in our Mishnah. And we went through a bunch of scenarios, and then in the end we disproved one of the opinions. So the Gemara doesn't end off and doesn't say, and therefore the conclusion is our Mishnah must be like Rabbi Yossi. The Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara just ends and says, the Gemara just asks a question, answers the question, and that's the end of the Gemara. The Gemara moves on to another discussion. You have to understand that the question that we asked disproves Rav Papa's opinion, and therefore the Mishnah cannot go like Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore must go like Rabbi Yossi. You gotta walk the train all the way back to the station. It's almost like in Sudoku. You know, you gotta. It's like a process of elimination. You have different numbers that could go in different boxes. It could be a 9 or it could be a 2, and then you eliminate all of the possibilities, and then you gotta work your way all the way back around. And so if that's a 1, that's a 2, then that's a 2, that's a 9, that's a 9, that's an 8. That must be a 7. You know, so you gotta keep track. So we call it in Yiddish Haut Cup. So that's concept number one. It's very, very important when it comes to studying the Talmud, to keep track of what's going on. Another important concept when it comes to Talmudic study, and this one's fascinating, even more fascinating than the Haut Cup concept. And that is that in the Talmud, in order to think like a Talmudist, you have to have the ability to understand the merit of an argument without necessarily accepting the argument as actually correct. And I'll explain. I'll explain. In other words, I'll give an example. Because you probably don't understand that sentence, but I'll give an example. Imagine there was a Mishnah, and imagine the Mishnah said something very, very obvious. The Mishnah said something very, very obvious. Like for example, the Mishnah says, the grass is green. Is everyone okay with that statement? The grass is green? Okay, yeah, I think we could all get behind that, right? Makes sense. But it's very problematic. It's very problematic. Why is it problematic? It's problematic because why would the Mishnah tell us that the grass is green? Why? I need the Mishnah to tell me that the grass... I know everyone looked outside and everyone sees the grass is green. What is...
It's not always green, but it depends.
Okay.
It depends on the climate, it depends on the time of year.
Okay, good.
Type of grass.
Very good, exactly.
And it can mean something else. It can be read the rest of the.
Yeah, it could be.
Exactly.
Like, the grass is always greener on the
So,
other side of the fence.
Now you guys are thinking like a Talmudic scholar. That's exactly the idea. So if the Mishnah says that the grass is green, it must not be such a simple statement. It must be that we're talking about a scenario where it possibly is not green. It possibly, I guess, it could possibly not be green, but the Mishnah comes and tells us, no, it's still green. And I'll give you, like, let's say, for example, the Mishnah says, okay, in Cleveland, during the winter, the grass, you may think the grass is not green. Or you may think that Mr. Goldberg's grass is not green. In Cleveland, in the winter, it's probably brown. You may think that. Comes the Mishnah and tells you, no. His grass is really green. So we have to understand the merit of an argument, even if we know it's not correct already. We know that the grass is green, because the Mishnah told us the grass is green. But we have to understand the other side of the argument in order to fully understand the obvious statement that the Mishnah made. So we actually did this earlier. In our Mishnah, we said that if someone on the night of the Seder, let's say a poor person, they can't afford 4 cups of wine. It says the Mishnah said they should go to the charity. So the Gemara asks, because it's obvious. What do you mean? Well, they're going to go, what is that supposed to mean? Of course they're going to go to the charity to get 4 cups of wine. Like, what's the other, like, why is the Mishnah telling me that? It's obvious. So I don't know if you guys remember, but we answered that Rabbi Akiva tells us that a person who needs money from charity should not go to the charity. They shouldn't go to the public charity. In fact, he said you should even downgrade your meal to, let's say, usually you're supposed to have a nice meal on Shabbat. Make a regular meal. Have a sandwich. Have something small, rather than going to the charity. So comes the Mishnah and tells us that although that's a good argument for the rest of the year, on Passover you should go to the charity and get money for 4 cups of wine. Does that make sense? Everyone understand this concept of understanding an argument even though we know it's not correct already? No? We'll do it again. We'll do it again. So the idea here, it's called in the Talmudic terminology called mahu detema, which means you might have thought to say. You might have thought to say. So we have to. The Gemara says, the Mishnah will say a statement, something like the grass is green, which is an obvious statement. Everyone knows the grass is green. But that can't be what the Mishnah is telling me, because the Mishnah is a book of academics. The Mishnah is a book of Torah law. Why would the Mishnah say something obvious? So obviously that's not what the Mishnah is saying. There has to be a case where I might think the grass is not green. Right? So imagine we're having an argument. And you say that we should build a $5 million shul in the backyard. And someone else says, no. I think that's a crazy idea. Let's build a $2 million shul in the backyard. Right? So we're having an argument. In order to fully understand the argument, you have to understand the other person's side of the argument in order to understand your side. Why do you say we should build a $5 million shul? And why do I say we should build a $2 million shul? Obviously, I understand my side of the argument, but in order for me to understand my side of the argument, I have to understand your side of the argument.
I'm thinking, why do you live back here? There's not enough space.
Yeah, there you go. That's a great argument. The point is that you have to understand the other side of the argument, even if you don't agree with it. So the Mishnah said the grass is green. I mean, the Mishnah didn't say the grass is green, but I'm giving an example. Let's say the Mishnah said the grass is green. So that's an obvious statement. It must be that the Mishnah was telling us something that we don't yet know. So we have to find a scenario where we may think the grass is not green, and therefore the Mishnah has to tell us that the grass is green. Does it make sense? Kind of?
So you'll unravel it from a simple statement.
We
understand the root.
Yeah, we know the law. The law is
something else. It's a hint.
We know the law. The rule, the ending rule is that the grass is green. We know that part. We're just trying to figure out what case are we talking about?
Right.
What's the scenario? Well, in what scenario would I think the grass would not be green, and then the law would be that the grass is indeed green? Understand? It's a very Talmudic way of thinking, but it's very fascinating.
So, like I would say, the grass is green as in it's alive. For the winter, the roots are still green. That would keep going from there.
What was that? Say that again?
The fact that green to me means it's alive. So it might look like it's dead during the winter, but the roots are still alive, and so it'll grow. And that's
Okay. So green doesn't mean alive, but green means green. But sure, you're saying that could be a scenario where I may think the grass is dead. I may think the grass is dead because it's brown, but the Mishnah is telling me, no, it's not dead. It's really alive. It's still alive. So that could be an argument that we're creating a scenario that we really already know in the outset it's not true, because we know that the grass is alive, but we're thinking maybe you would think the grass is dead. Whatever, I guess that would be another beautiful case, another example of the same idea. But that's really what the Talmud does a lot. The Talmud does this a lot. The Talmud will we know the end law already. We're just trying to figure out what the Mishnah is talking about. What's the scenario that law applies to? So we're gonna actually do this tonight. But I want you to understand the concept before we get into it. Because if you don't understand the idea, then it'll be a lot harder to understand the examples that we're going to go through. But so I'll do the example that we did with Rabbi Akiva one more time, and then we'll go further. So Rabbi Akiva says that a person should go to the charity to collect money for 4 cups of wine. So the Gemara asks, that's obvious. Of course it should go to the charity. So the Gemara answers, no. We're talking about a scenario where a person doesn't want to go to charity, because Rabbi Akiva said you shouldn't go to the charity. You shouldn't go to collect money from charity. In general, it's not good to collect from charity. But on Passover, the Mishnah says even that person should go to collect from charity to get the 4 cups of wine, because the 4 cups of wine are special. In other words, it's an exception to the rule. It's an exception to the rule. So that's the idea. That's the idea. So this type of thinking, by the way, helps. Sorry, here we go. So this types of thinking helps us, number one, understand our viewpoint. And it helps us understand not only our view, but also the opponent's view. It also helps us understand the law and the cases in general, but it also sharpens our mind as a whole, and it helps us through life in general. And that's possibly one of the reasons why Jewish people are known for being very smart, because when you study the Talmud a lot, you begin to think like this. Every time someone gives you a scenario, you think, wait, but what if the scenario is different? What if that's the case? What if it's the other way around? I saw this video, maybe I'll send it to you guys after. This guy goes into to Dunkin' Donuts. There's a kosher Dunkin' Donuts somewhere in New York or New Jersey, I don't know. So he goes to Dunkin' Donuts and he says, can I get he found that there's like a breakfast, special where they give out a breakfast with a coffee. So he says, can I get a breakfast, but just instead of a coffee, can I get a hot chocolate? So they said, no, it's our policy. We only give out coffee with the breakfast. So the guy said, can you put like chocolate flavoring in the coffee? They said, sure. So he said, can you put milk, like a lot of milk in the coffee? So they said, sure. So he said, like, can you take out the caffeine in the coffee, like a decaf? They said, sure. So he says, so can you just take out the coffee flavoring as well? He says, no, we can't do that. He says, why not? We already established that the flavoring doesn't make it a coffee because we added chocolate flavoring. We established the caffeine doesn't make it a coffee because we took out the caffeine. So what makes it a coffee? The only thing that makes it a coffee is that it comes with this special. So just switch it out with a chocolate. And this lady's like, what are you talking about? Either way, but this is this is like just the way the Talmud gets you to think. It's just it's really breaking apart every possible solution. So we're gonna really do that tonight, and we're gonna do it together. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be exciting. So let's dive in. we're going to jump to page 179. What was that?
That's where I was before, then I somehow got lost when you. Okay.
So this little piece from the Talmud comes from the tractate of Bava Metzia, which is all about laws about loans, bailments, found or lost items, and employment contracts. So this is about the people who hired workers, and now there's a dispute between what exactly they should earn. So let's read text 5, page 179. If one hired workers, but they deceived each other, the parties have no claim of liability against each other. They merely have a right to complain. That's case number one, because the Mishnah continues. If one hired a donkey driver, let me say that again. If one hired a donkey driver or a porter to fetch canopy posts or wedding/funeral flutes, or workers to raise flax from the soaking pit, or any other task involving something that will be lost if the task is not performed immediately, and they canceled, the individual may hire replacement workers at their expense. So there's two cases here. I'm going to explain the second one because the second one's a little easier to understand, and then we'll go to the first one. The second one is where I hired a guy to do a job for me that was very much time sensitive. And whether it was bringing the chuppah for the wedding, the canopy that their bride and groom are going to get married under, or maybe it was some flax. Anyone, you guys do flax around here? No? What? Yeah, they used to soak the flax in this pit, and it would have to be taken out at a certain time. If not, it would get ruined. So he hired a guy. He called him up. He said, "Hey, Joe, can you take out the flax from the pit? 12 o'clock. The guy said, "No problem, absolutely." 11:30, Joe calls him up and says, "Oh, sorry, man. I'm just so sorry. I can't do it." He said, "What do you mean? It's 11:30. I need it out by 12. So I can't. Sorry." Beep. So now what's he supposed to do? So the Mishnah tells us that you, as the guy who hired him, are able to go hire new guys. Now you can imagine hiring someone to take out this flax from the pit is going to probably cost an extra fee because there's like a rush fee. The guy has to do it in the next half hour. He has to drop everything he's doing, run over there. He'll probably charge you an extra couple bucks. So you can actually claim that extra money from the first guy you hired. Now I want to point out that because Jews are a lot of lawyers, they put this probably in the contract already in the fine prints, and we're allowed to cancel whatever. So don't try this at home. But according to Talmudic, according to Jewish law, if there was no contract written up, there was no fine print, and someone agreed to do a job for you, and then they canceled last minute, and now I'm going to have to pay someone more to do that same job, I'm able to demand that difference in cost, and I'm able to collect it from the first guy who canceled on me. That's the second case of the Mishnah. Sounds fair, right? That's the second case of the Mishnah. It seems very, very fair. But let's look at the first case in the Mishnah. Is a little more not so clear. So the guy hired workers, and then it says they deceived each other. They deceived each other. Let me put this on the board. Here we go. They deceived each other. So the first case, the second case, the bottom case, talking about cancellation. We spoke about that. The guy canceled, whatever. The first case, we're trying to figure out what's going on. So the guy hired someone, and it says they deceived each other. They deceived each other, and now they don't actually have a liability claim. They can't actually claim any money against them. They can't sue them. They just have a right to complain. What is that supposed to mean? So the Gemara first wants to say maybe it's talking about a cancellation, a similar cancellation story, but just not where there's a financial loss. Right? So the second case is clearly talking about where there was a financial loss. There was something that needed to be done immediately. The guy was bringing a wedding canopy. The guy was taking the flax out of the pit. This is a time-sensitive task. If it's not done now, you got a big problem. So the Gemara first wants to say that the first case is talking about the same scenario where you hired someone, they canceled. And that's what it means when it says they deceived each other. He canceled on him. And the Gemara says that because the Mishnah used the word deceived, it's very hard to say that it's a case of cancellation. It sounds like it was more of a case of deception. The guy deceived him. He lied to him. He tricked him. So the Gemara is going to now try to figure out where is there a scenario where I deceived you or you deceived me, either or, but I don't have any liable claim against you. I can't actually sue you for it. All I have is a right to complain.
It could be that you said that you were going to pay me this amount, when I get there, I'm not supposed to. And you say, oh, I changed my mind. I'm paying you half of that. And I cancel because you just, then I go. I think that would be.
Okay, so good. So before we get to your example, I want to just clarify something.
Like an executive order.
There's two types of deception. Or I guess, whatever. We're using the word deception very loosely right now, but there's two types of deception. There's what we call material deception, where you lost money, you lost out on something. So for example, let's take Leah Wiseman's example. Let's say I'm the owner of a big company, and I say, I'll hire you for 4 zuz. Zuz is the currency in the Talmud time, so I'm just going to use zuz. But I say, I'll hire you for 4 zuz. Okay, you come, you do the job, and I say, okay, thank you so much. Here's your 3 zuz. And you say, whoa. You told me I'm going to get 4 zuz, not 3 zuz. Right? Is that your claim? Is that what you say?
What I'm saying is that for some reason, before it's finished, or even starts maybe.
Okay.
Finds out it's not again. Or
Okay, so that, but
I'll work for you for 4 days, and you said for whatever. Then I go to the first day. Oh, by the way, here's your 3. And wait, you talk about 4, and you say no, down to 3 now. I'm not coming back tomorrow.
okay, so that first of all, that's a case of miscommunication. But who we're trying to find, first want to give a case of actual deception. 1 second. Actual deception is where you cheated me. Let's go to the extreme. You cheated me. What's a case of you cheated me? Where I say I'll give you 4, you did the work, and then I only pay you 3. Can you claim that last dollar from me? Can you sue me for that last dollar?
I think you can.
Of course, 100%. You could 100%. You could, and let's just make it a lot bigger. Imagine I said I'll pay you $300,000 to do a job. Sorry, well let's go. Sorry, I said $400,000 to do a job, and you come and then you do the job, and I only give you $300,000. Can you sue me for the last $100,000? 100%, because we had an agreement. I'm going to give you $400,000, and I only give you $300,000. So that's what we call straight up deception. It's fraud. It's a lie. I cheated you. And you could take me to court for that last zuz, however much that zuz is. Right? Everyone, that makes sense?
Unless there's fine print that says if you don't perform.
Okay, fine. Okay, fair enough. But the Gemara is not talking about any fine print, because fine print means the case is different. Fine print means our discussion was different. That's really what fine print is all about. The contract was different. Here we're talking about the contract was straight up. I said 4, and I only gave you 3, right? Everyone agrees that's deception? Make sense? Now what happens if I hired someone and I said, Matthew, can you plow my wheat? I want you to harvest my wheat field. It's a 1 acre by 1, it's a square 1 acre, what's it called? Whatever, 1 acre of land. 1 acre of land, it's just full of wheat, whatever. And you say, sure, no problem. I do that stuff all the time. I could do it. We make up a price, no problem. So you come out and you look and you say, it's not a wheat field, it's a barley field. Now, barley and wheat is it grows pretty much the same. It's the same thing. Can you take me to court and sue me for lying to you that it was really wheat? It was really a barley field and not a wheat field? What? Let's just say it's the same. Let's say it's the same. Well, let's say it's the same. Let's say same harvest machine, same difficulty.
What if I'm allergic to barley?
You're not allergic to barley. There's no.
You got an ethical position.
So 1 second. Again, if there's any actual liability involved, then it's a different case. But I'm talking about no liability. It's just that I lied to you in telling you it was wheat is really barley.
I like
But this.
to complain.
Okay, good, exactly. You like to complain, but can you actually lodge a can you take me to court for it? No, right?
Not unless there's harm done.
Not unless there's harm done. Exactly. But since there's no harm done, I just lied to you about what the actual field what the field was. It was wheat instead of barley instead of wheat, whatever. But the point is, it's the same work. You're getting the same pay. It's the same job, same hours. Because there's no actual difference in work and time and liability. Nothing was lost. No money was lost. You can't take me to court. You can't sue me. In fact, you don't even have a valid complaint. You go around. You imagine giving a Yelp review, a Google review. He told me it was barley was really wheat. Like, okay, those are the few reviews you skip by. Like there's credible reviews. You'll go through the 1-star reviews. You always check the 1-star reviews to see how good a business is. But you read the 1-star reviews. Sometimes they're lame reviews. He did a job and then he didn't want to do this extra part. Like you're like, come on. Like I agree with the owner already. Like let's see a real 1-star review. So when you say it was wheat, it was barley, it was wheat, that's not a real bad review. That's not a real bad claim. That's not a real claim. If people like to complain, you're welcome to complain. No problem, there's no problem with complaining. But you can't actually lodge an official complaint, right? So those are the two types of complaining. So the Gemara is trying to figure out here something very interesting. We're trying to find a case where, on the one hand, you don't have a legal claim, because then I can sue you for that liability or whatever was lost. But you also don't have no right to complain whatsoever. In other words, it's not that there was no harm done. There had to be some harm done. So I have the right to complain. In other words, I have a valid complaint, but I can't actually sue you for it. And that's what the first case in the Mishnah is talking about. Two people deceived each other. There's no claim of liability against each other, but they merely have a right to complain. So in other words, I have a valid complaint. It's something that you did to me, and I could complain, and it's valid, and I should be able to take you to court. I just can't. So the Gemara is trying to figure out, what scenario are we talking about? What's that case where I have no liability, I have no legal claim against you, but I also have a right and a valid claim, a valid complaint. So in the case where we said that the guy promised $4, 4 zuz, and he only gave him 3 zuz, that's straight up fraud. He could go and claim that money. If the case where the guy said wheat versus barley, that's an immaterial deception. It's not real deception. No harm was done. You can't actually complain about that. I mean, yeah, you could go home and say, I like the smell of wheat. Like, hey, that's not a real complaint. So we're trying to figure out which case is our sugya talking about. Which case is our Gemara talking about, where you have a valid claim, but you can't actually legally go to court for that claim. Okay, that's what we're trying to figure out. Everyone with me still? Any questions? No questions. Good. So let's begin our discussion. So let's look at this slide right here. We made a very interesting visual for everyone to understand. We created a mountain. We created a mountain over here on the board. The mountain, the top of the mountain, the peak of the mountain is where we're going to put a ball on the top of the mountain. We have no legal claim, but you also have a valid complaint. You have a right to complain. If the ball falls a little bit to the left, means that you have a legal claim. You actually could take the guy to court for that loss. If the ball falls to the right, that means you have no right to complain. In other words, you have no actual complaint. You didn't lose anything to actually file a complaint. right? Like the example of wheat and barley. Okay, so we're trying to figure out this material, this deception situation. Is if the ball, we're trying to find a case where the ball will stay in the middle of the mountain. The ball will stay in the middle of the mountain. In other words, we have a valid claim, but you can't take the guy to court for it. Okay? So the Gemara starts off to say, the Gemara begins to say that we could be, our case is talking about where you hired an agent. You hired an agent. Let's put this on the board here. Okay, here we go. You hired an agent. So Mr. A is an owner. Mr. A is an owner, and he tells Mr. B. Okay, tells Mr. B. He says, "Hey, Mr. B, can you go hire workers for a job that I need done?" So and then Mr. B goes and hires these other two guys for the job. So in this scenario, we could actually find several scenarios where the workers will have a right to complain, but yet they can't actually sue the owner and try and get that lost money. So what I want to do is we're gonna go through this case like just once together, but what I want to do is I want to try to do something very unique, and that is we're gonna split up into partners for just 5 minutes, and we're gonna try to go through the cases within ourselves. Two people will pair up. Every two people will pair up, and we'll just go through the cases. You'll go through with your partner, and we'll see if you can try to figure out which cases the Gemara will, which cases will have, a person will have a right to complain, but yet no legal claim. In other words, which cases will the ball remain on the top of the hill? Okay, so let's just go through the case one more time. So let's say you have a guy, let's take people in the crowd for a second. We'll do like a little role play. Let's say I'm an owner, I'm a business owner, a field owner. So I go to Mike, I say, Mike, you're my agent. Can you hire workers for me? So Mike goes and he hires two people. Which two people are you picking?
These two.
Okay, perfect.
I don't do anything.
What? So I tell Mike, and I say, hey, I'm ready to hire people for this job, and I'm willing to pay.
I'm not paying you guys to sit around, just to work.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing.
I'm willing to pay.
Bring shovels.
I'm willing to pay $4. I'm willing to pay four zuz. Sorry, not $4. 4 zuz. I'm willing to pay 4 zuz. Mike goes over to his workers. He says that he has a job for you guys. 3 zuz. And you guys say, sure, 3 zuz, absolutely, we'll take it. Okay, you do the job. And then you come to me for payment, and I give you the 3 zuz, but somehow you get wind of the fact that initially I told Mike that I'm looking to hire guys for 4 zuz. Okay? Can you guys sue me for the last zuz? No. Right? Why? Because you agreed to 3 and I gave you 3. Right? There was no deception, right? Now, the Gemara even wants to go as far as to say that you can't really even complain about it. Because you agreed to 3, you got 3, what are you complaining about?
Mike needs to make the zuz on the deal.
No, Mike's not making anything. Mike, me and Mike have a deal.
You need to give the zuz to the
No. Yeah. This is, me and Mike have our own agreement. Mike doesn't make a deal. Mike doesn't make any money on this deal. This is just I get to keep the extra zuz. I was going to hire guys for 4. Mike found me guys for 3, and I paid them 3. Done. Can you complain to me that since your budget was really higher, we want that higher price? No, right? It's not a valid complaint. So that would be a case where the ball will roll into the valley of no real complaint. You can't really complain, right? So that can't be what our Mishnah is talking about. Okay? But what if we take this a little further, we could find some cases where there may be scenarios where you do have a valid complaint. So I want you guys to split up, and we're gonna turn to page 182. We're gonna turn to page 182, and we'll go through these. We'll go through these cases. We'll go through as many as you can. I'll put on we'll do a 5-minute timer, and just try to go through as many as you can, and see how many scenarios you could get through. So I guess you guys could pair up. And then I guess maybe you three will just all do it together.
You
Page.
did a good job. Thank you very much.
So Harry and Roseanne, you guys will pair up. We'll go through the cases.
Okay. Okay, so I've got a field.
Okay, so I'm not wherever you guys are up to. We'll pause and we're gonna do it from the beginning together. What? No, that's fine. That's fine. The point wasn't to go through all of them, but the point was to get a good understanding of where we're going with this.
Why I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, exactly.
I do computer stuff.
So let's do it all. Let's do it all together. We're gonna do it all together. So the first scenario is where we said with the owner said 4.
We're not paying them overtime.
Yeah. The owner said 4. The agent said 3. We did this case already. The owner said 4. The agent said 3. And now the workers they're complaining, hey, we could have got 4, but obviously that's not a real complaint because they agreed to 3. They got 3. End of story. So then we brought a second scenario. The second scenario, so that we said it was no right to complain. The second scenario we said was the employer, which is in the example we gave earlier was me. I hired people, but I gave a lower wage. I said 3 zuz. Mike, my agent, went out and quoted a higher amount. He hired his workers he said 4 zuz. So in that case, the workers, do they have a right to complain? Can you guys complain? You were promised 4, and you come to me and I say, I'm only giving you 3.
Yes.
Can you complain? For sure. Can you sue me for that last zuz?
Sure.
Yeah.
But I never said I'm going to give you 4. I only said I'm going to give 3.
They can sue the agent.
Okay. So they could sue the agent. They could come and sue Mike and say, you told us 4. I never said 4. I said 3. I'm sticking by 3. I never hire people for 4. I would never say such a thing. Go sue Mike. So they could go sue Mike. They have a right to complain. But the truth is, it depends how Mike said it. It depends how Mike said it. If Mike said, I'll pay you 4, and then they did a job for me when I said I'll only pay 3, and then I pay you guys 3. So you guys could go to Mike and say, you told us you'll pay 4. You told us you'll pay us 4. In that case, you could go and sue Mike for that last zuz. I'm willing to pay the 3, I don't mind. But you're going to have to sue Mike for the last 4th zuz because he told you he'll pay you 4. But if Mike said it a little differently, if Mike said, the owner will pay 4, I'll pay 4. Right? So now you can't sue Mike because Mike never promised to pay anything. You can't sue me because I never promised to pay 4. So that's a scenario, that's scenario number 1, where you have a valid complaint because you were told 4, but you can't actually get 4 because you have no one to claim it from. You can't claim it from Mike because Mike never promised you anything. Mike was just telling you about a job. Imagine I told you that Walmart is giving out free car seats. So you quickly drop all your meetings, you run to Walmart, and there's no free car seats. You gonna complain to me? I'm gonna say, listen, that's what I thought. I heard. Like, what do you want from me? Go complain to Walmart. I don't know. And Walmart says we never promised any free car seats. So it was a case of miscommunication. You could complain, and you have a valid complaint because you told that you're going to get $4 zuz for the job, but you can't actually claim it from anyone. You can't claim it from Mike because Mike never promised anything. You can't claim it from me because I never promised anything. So there was a case of miscommunication. So that's scenario number one. So when the employer quoted a lower wage and the agent, Mike, quoted a higher wage, then the agent is going to be responsible for that money. But as we said, if the agent said that the employer is going to be responsible for the wages, then in that case, whoops, it was supposed to stay on there. Whoops, I'll go back.
The marvel's not cooperating.
There we go. It's going to stay right there. If the agent said that the employer is responsible for the wages, then bam, we have the ball standing right in the middle of the mountain because they have a right to complain.
It says no legal complaint.
No, they have no legal claim, but a right to complain. In other words, they have a good, valid complaint, but they can't actually sue anyone for it. They have no legal claim to take anyone to court. This is the case where the employer set a lower price, the agent set a higher price, but the agent said the employer is going to pay you. The employer is going to pay you 4 zuz, even though I never promised anyone 4 zuz. I only promised 3 zuz. So in that case, the workers can't claim it from me because I never promised 3. I never promised 4. I only promised 3. The agent never said anything that he'll pay. He was just telling you about a job. He was just telling you, hey, there's a job opening for 4 zuz. It happened to be 3 zuz. Whoops. I said it wrong.
This is one of the cases you were talking about where I completely understand the argument and I completely disagree with it.
Because to me, it's misrepresenting something anyway.
Well,
Unless it's just me saying, hey, it's a cool job. But if he's an agent, it's legally responsible.
What do you?
Being correct.
Okay, so good point. This is a good point. In the U.S., in many states, an agent of a corporation is liable if they are there. In other words, they are responsible and they talk on behalf of the corporation. So if an agent says something, then you can actually sue the corporation for the agent who told you something, right? But in Jewish law, it doesn't work like that. In Jewish law, an agent is there to work on your behalf. So I hire, in Hebrew it's called a shliach. I hire a messenger, an agent to do a job for me. If the guy does his own thing and he runs off and he starts doing things that will be detrimental to me as the person who sent him, he actually invalidates his agent status.
No.
It's more of like what? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of a scenario in actual like in our legal system that it's compared to. I don't know if there isn't a scenario. So okay, so
Paid to do the job and he should get it right.
not necessarily. An agent in Jewish law, an agent doesn't necessarily mean you're paid to the job, but an agent means I told you to do something and you agreed to do that for me. If you went out and did something else against my wishes, and now you're making me liable, you almost like automatically get fired as my agent because I told you to hire a guy for 3, and you went and hired someone for 4. Like I don't know you anymore. Like get out of here. I did like. The guy, he went rogue, the guy, an employee goes rogue, you get fired. So here it's like an automatic firing if an agent does something against the wishes of the owner, if it's detrimental to him. Obviously, if it benefits the owner, then the owner could say, of course, I want it. But if it's detrimental to the owner, it's automatically, the guy's not a shliach anymore. He's not an agent. So that's just an interesting difference between Jewish law and U.S., most of U.S. law. So it is. I hear that you're saying you disagree with it because it's a little different than what we're used to. But in Jewish law, that's the way it works.
So they have the right to complain.
Well,
They have no right to complain either.
they have no right to. No, they have a right to complain because they were told 4, and they only got 3. They have a valid complaint, but they can't sue anyone for it.
I think I'm getting lost in your explanations.
I'll go through this scenario again. It's very simple. Very simple. I said I'll hire people for $4. I told Mike, can you? Sorry, $3. Yeah. Let's start again. If I said I'll hire people for a job for 3 zuz. I told Mike, can you find people for 3 zuz? Mike said, sure, I got you. Mike goes out and he tells his people that the job is paying 4 zuz. Zuz higher than what I said. So the workers, come to do the job. They do the job. And after the job, I'm only willing to pay them 3 because I only promised 3. So they could file a complaint with me. They can file a complaint with Mike, but they can't sue anyone. They can't sue Mike because Mike never promised to pay anything. What was that?
I just thought you said you couldn't complain. That's what I.
No, one second. There's a difference between filing a legal claim and a right to complain.
Okay, so I got what?
A right to complain means you have a valid point, but you can't sue anyone for it. A legal claim means you could sue someone for it, and you could actually go collect that money. That's the difference between a legal claim and just a right to complain.
But then, if I complained about, if you didn't pay me what I was told, that would be a problem. Anyway, you can complain on the agent, or you can complain on the employer.
It doesn't matter, whatever it is, either or. I think mainly you're complaining to the agent, but it doesn't either way, either or.
The
point is you have-
agent term is kind of like getting people stuck.
Yeah.
I think maybe in that time, an agent could be somebody like, say, hey, me, okay? So
Yeah.
I'd say, hey, Robert did my lawn for $50. You should call him and hire him. So, and then like I tell Roseanne, she lives in my neighborhood, they want their yard done. She calls them and says, Scott, why did you throw this guy? Now he's charging $7. Or something like that.
Yeah, I guess something similar. I mean, in our case, the owner told him to find someone for 3, but a similar scenario. Yeah, let's just say it was a random dude, his neighbor. Told his neighbor, find someone for 3 zuz, and he went out and told someone it's going to be 4 zuz. Right? Okay. But an agent in this scenario just means I told someone to do something for me. Okay, let's go to the next scenario. So, the Gemara continues and says, what happens if there's and I want to point out that in those days, this was very common. There was a lot of times for certain jobs, there was a standard price for certain jobs. In fact, sometimes it was by law. You had to, like certain jobs, you got a certain price. And you couldn't go higher, you couldn't go lower. Almost like minimum wage, but like it was like no higher, no lower. It was like a fixed set price for certain things. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, in certain states, like there's certain, when you do like closing costs on your house, maybe someone correct me if I'm wrong, there's certain costs that are they're fixed. And it is what it is. And I remember someone told me that, in Florida, you could shop around for home insurance or something like that. And I understood it to mean that in some states you can't. Like in other words, there's a fixed amount. It is what it is. So let's just a similar scenario. There in those days, certain jobs had certain standard wages. A guy was told to harvest a field. It's 4 zuz always. So in that case, if I, the owner, said that I'll pay 3 zuz, even though the standard is 4, everyone knows the standard is 4. And I told Mike, find someone who's going to do the job for 3 zuz. Mike went out and found someone who's going to do this job for 4 zuz, which is the standard. And they come and do the job for me. Obviously, I'm responsible to pay them that last 4th zuz because the standard is 4 zuz. They were promised 4 zuz. The standard is 4 zuz. And I, as an owner, wanted to cheat the system and get 3 zuz. That doesn't work. And therefore, I'm liable. They could legally claim that last zuz from me, the owner. The workers could claim that last zuz from me, even though I only said I'll pay 3. Because the standard is 4. And the same thing applies with the standard being 3 zuz. If let's say the standard was 3 zuz, and the owner said I'll pay 3, I'm willing to pay the standards. 3 zuz. Everyone pays 3 zuz. I'll pay 3 zuz, no problem. Mike goes out and he finds someone who's willing to do it for 4 zuz. Well, they're only willing to do it for 4 zuz. The workers are willing to do it if they get paid 4 zuz. They come, they do the job. So now the workers can't complain, wait, why aren't we getting 4 zuz? Because the owner said 3, and the standard is 3. So Mike messed, whatever, he was a miscommunication, but that's it. You can't complain. You don't have a valid complaint because the standard is 3. So the Gemara is trying to figure out if there's a standard wage, then what scenario will there be a legal claim but still they'll have a right to complain about it. In other words, they'll have a valid point.
I think you still, even if the standard is 3, if someone said, I really want to do this, I'll take you extra, you would take the order, or not, or it's not, never done.
What was that?
Oh, we don't speak the same English.
I don't speak the same
sometimes.
language.
I lose people. I'm saying is, if I say I'll pay 4, even if the standard's only 3, because I think this job is very important, I want to get it done real fast.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be, but so isn't.
So one second, if we had a face-to-face conversation, then you're 100% right. I told you 4, it's 4, done. But we're talking about there's a miscommunication. There's an agent here in middle. There's a middleman. There's a middleman. So I said I'll hire someone for 3, which is the standard. The middleman went out and told people that they'll get paid 4. That's not the standard, and it's not what I said. So the workers at the end of the day are only going to get paid 3 because I, as the owner, only said I'll pay 3, and that's the standard, right? So they can't really complain about anything, okay? But the Gemara is going to say like this. The Gemara is going to say like this. If you're in a place where there's no standard wage, then obviously we could say, as we said before, that the owner said 3, the middleman said 4, the workers did the job. They want 4, but they can only claim 3. So they have a right to complain because they were told 4, but they don't have anyone to sue. That's only if there's no standard wage. But if there is a standard wage, then there is still a case where they have a right to complain. What's the scenario? Ready, guys? I got a hot cup a little bit over here. What? If let's say, we'll do it together. If let's say, and by the way, yeah. If let's say the workers that I hired are not laborers. They're not regular workers. They're business owners. They heard that Mike's offering a job for 4 zuz. They were like, whoo, 4 zuz. I'll do the job for 4 zuz. I don't usually harvest fields. I don't usually do plumbing jobs, but for 4 zuz, I'll do it. No problem. So they are only taking the job because Mike told them it's 4 zuz. Now, I only promised 3. So they come at the end of the job and they say, we want 4. And I say, hey, listen, it's 3. The standard is 3. Everyone gets paid 3. And I only promised 3. So in that case, you have a right to complain. You can't legally sue anyone because, again, the standard is 3. So you can't legally sue anyone for that 4 zuz. But you could complain about it, and you have a valid point because you gave up your business. You were running a business, and you gave up that business to do a job that a regular laborer would do, precisely because someone was paying above asking price, above the standard. Another example of where even if there's a standard, you could have a right to complain would be if the workers heard that the job is Mike said that they're going to get paid 4 zuz. So the workers said, we'll do an extra better job. We'll do a double job. We'll do a extra special job. Right? So let's give an actual example. Let's say the standard is 3. The standard for to plow a field, which is about, let's just say, a 1 acre field. 1 acre field, you plow it, you get 3 zuz. Okay, 1 day, 1 plow, 3 zuz, 1 acre. So they heard that they're getting paid 4 zuz for this job. So they said, you know what? We're going to do a great job because we're getting paid 4. Worth it for us. So they went and they plowed not an acre in a day, but they did 1.5 acres. And now they said now they want that 4 zuz. The workers say, we want to get paid we did a better job because we thought we were getting paid 4. The owner says, I only offered to pay 3, and the standard is 3. I didn't know you guys were planning on doing a better job. So they should have a right to complain. So the Gemara says, wait a second, let's just look at their work. If they actually did a better job, maybe the owner should be liable to pay them that extra zuz. Right? If you actually did a 4 zuz job, Shouldn't I pay you for that extra work? So the scenario the Gemara says, obviously we're talking about a case where you can't prove, the workers can't prove that they did a better job. So the example the Gemara gives is you have like a cistern, a ditch. They built a ditch. It was an irrigation system. There's a big ditch, and now it's filled with water. The workers claim, because we were told that we're going to get paid 4 zuz, we made it super smooth, we made it really nice. Now it's filled with water, and you can't see the great job we did. But we did a 4 zuz job. We did, and we should get paid 4 zuz. The owner says, I'm sorry, we can't prove it. We're not going to dig up your whole work to see the plumbing inside. Obviously that's not going to be worth it anymore. We can't prove that you did a 4 zuz job, so I can only pay you 3. So you guys could complain, and you have a valid claim, a valid point, but at the end of the day, you can't sue anyone. Because again, I only promised 3, the standard was 3, who are you going to sue? So you have a valid complaint, but again, no one to sue. So in that scenario, you'll have, so let's go both through cases on the board. Let's do both cases on the board. We have, if the standard wage is 3, but the people that he hired are not laborers, but they're landowners, in that case, they would never do the job for 3. Since they were told 4, they accepted. In that case, they have a right to complain. The other scenario is if the standard wage is 3, and the laborers produced work that was worth 4 zuz, but they can't prove it. In that case, because they can't prove it, they can't sue anyone. They can't legally claim that money in court, but they do have a valid point. They have a valid claim because they did an extra special job. They did a 4 zuz job, really. And it's very sad, but they have no one to sue for it. And they can't collect that extra money. The last scenario the Gemara brings here is that the Gemara kind of goes back to the original assumption. What if we said, as we said earlier, the owner didn't say 3, the owner said 4. The owner said 4. What if the owner said 4? And Mike went out and told people 3. Okay, he told you guys 3. So you guys were told 3. You come, you do the job, and now you're getting paid 3. So we said at the beginning that you don't really have a right to complain. But the Gemara says, wait, maybe they do have a right to complain. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, that teaches us that you're not supposed to deprive people of an opportunity to gain something. In other words, if you have an opportunity to have someone gain something, you should try and allow someone to gain that thing. Obviously, talking about where there's no loss to you. There's no loss to Mike to have these guys get paid 4 zuz. Mike doesn't lose anything. Mike doesn't gain anything. So they complain to Mike and say, why'd you let us lose out on that 4 zuz? Yeah, I know we agreed to 3 zuz. And I know that we're getting paid 3 zuz. But we could have got paid 4 zuz. And you deprived us of that extra money. And in that case, the Gemara says, maybe you do have a valid complaint. Maybe you do have a valid point. Obviously, you can't sue anyone because, again, I only promised because because you were told 3 and you got 3. So you can't sue anyone for that last zuz. But you do have a valid point. And that pretty much ends that back and forth. So let's turn to page 181, and we'll just go through all 4 scenarios together. The 4 scenarios in which it actually where it could be the case of our Mishnah, where you have a right to complain but no legal claim. So let's go together. Figure 5.4, page 181. And I'll actually put on the board here. Okay, here we go. So first scenario is where the employer quoted 3 zuz. The agent or the middleman quoted 4 zuz. What's the case? That there's no fixed wage, so there's no set amount that they're meant to get paid. So the workers have no legal claim to claim that last zuz. They nevertheless have grounds to complain because they were led to believe that they would receive 4. That's scenario number 1, which could be our Mishnah. They have not a legal claim. They have a right to complain. They have a valid point, but no legal claim. Okay. The second scenario is where the employer quoted 3, well, as his quote was 3 zuz. The middleman or the agent said that they'll get paid 4 zuz, and there is a fixed wage. There is a standard. The standard is 3. But these workers were not regular workers. They were not laborers. They were business owners. So they only took the job because they were offering a higher price. So they have grounds to complain because they would not perform manual labor without the incentive of an inflated wage. So because they were led to believe that they would get 4 zuz, they took the job, but they would never have taken the job otherwise. So they have a point, they have a complaint, but they don't have anyone to sue. They can't actually legally claim that money. The third scenario is again where the employer quoted 3 zuz, and the middleman, the agent, quoted 4 zuz, and the fixed wage is 3. There's a standard. Everyone gets paid 3. But these workers invested extra effort as required for a 4-wage job because due to the promise of receiving 4, they were told they're going to get 4, and therefore they did the extra work. However, they have no way to prove their extra work. So they have grounds to complain because the agent's deception caused them to do extra work without extra compensation, and they can't actually legally claim that money. The last scenario, which we said, was where the employer,
That's what you said again.
what?
I must be posted.
I'm reading inside.
No, but I mean the one that you just finished, you said had what?
They don't have any legal claim. They can't actually legally claim that money. These are all the same scenario. In all these cases, they don't have a legal claim, but they have a valid point. They have a right to complain. They have they lost something. They lost out on something. One second, let me just do the last scenario, then we'll take your question. The last scenario, the fourth scenario, is where the employer quoted 4, the agent quoted 3, and the workers have grounds to complain because the agent caused them to forego an opportunity to earn a higher wage. You deprived us of more money. Yeah, what do you want to say?
In any of these cases, none of it is in writing. So it's all your word against theirs.
I guess, yeah.
There's no employment contract.
What?
There's no employment contract.
There's no employment contract. I guess, yeah, yeah.
This is before the printing press, you couldn't just go down to Staples and buy some blank.
So not necessarily, by the way. There's tons of people where you could hire a guy to do a job in your house. There's no contract. You tell the guy, the handyman, can you fix my drywall? No problem. The guy does it, $300. Like, $300? You said $400. What are you talking about? And you start arguing. But the guy said, it's all word of mouth. The question is, can I take the guy to court? The guy told me 3. He said 4, and it's 4, it's 3. So we're talking about a case where we're trying to find the case where we already know the ending. The ending scenario, the ending ruling is that you don't have a legal claim, but you have a right to complain. We're just trying to figure out the plausible scenario. You understand how the Talmud was thinking? We're trying to figure out what the possible scenario could be, and we come up with several. There could be several scenarios where you do have a right to complain, but no legal, you can't actually sue anyone for that loss of money. You lost on something, but I'm sorry, you don't have anyone to sue for it. And it's sad. People lose money all the time, but that's sometimes life. So I want to. Anyone have any questions before we continue?
Might want to conclude it.
Oh, whoops. I'm so sorry for all those on Zoom. We'll leave that there for a minute. Let them read it. Yeah. So the Gemara actually concludes with an entirely different conclusion. Nothing to what we said till now. I mean, all these were plausible scenarios. They could possibly be the scenario of our Mishnah, but the Gemara actually concludes with an entirely different scenario. Something we actually mentioned way in the beginning. We kind of dismissed it way in the beginning, moving right past it. But the Gemara says, whoa, let's move back. Maybe the first thing we suggested was actually, maybe that's what the Mishnah was really talking about. What's that scenario? So we said, if one hired workers, but they deceived each other, the parties have no claim of liability against each other. They merely have a right to complain. Okay? So we said, the word that the Mishnah uses is hitu ze'ezeh. The word hitu literally means misled. That's generally what it means. this one misled this one. It's literally, if you want to translate literally, they misled this one to this one. They were misled. But the Mishnah said, the Gemara says, maybe we can actually translate it as the second case in the Mishnah says, as canceled. They canceled on each other. Or one guy canceled on one guy. And the Gemara actually brings a brisa to prove that the word hitu could possibly mean cancel. So what's the scenario in that case? That you have a guy, you hired someone to do a job, you hired a plumber to fix your toilet. And the plumber said, no problem, I'll be there before Shabbos. I know you have a minyan coming up, and I want to get there as soon as possible. And then the guy canceled on you. And now you're out on the toilet. You don't have your toilet's still not working. Right? So can you sue the guy? Can you legally sue the guy for canceling on you? No, because the guy, whatever, he canceled. Can you complain? Yeah, sure. You can complain. You have a valid point. You have a valid review on Google. Perfect. People should definitely read your review. You have a point. The guy misled you. He canceled, and now you have a stuffed toilet, and you have people coming over. What are you supposed to do? The guy, you can't sue the guy. He canceled. In the second case of the Mishnah, there was actually a monetary value that was lost. So in that case, you could sue the guy. In that scenario, there was flax that the guy promised he'll take out of the pit. And if he doesn't take it out of the pit, the flax is going to get ruined. And then last minute, the guy canceled on you. And now you're going to have to go hire someone and pay them more to take that flax out of the pit. In that case, you could sue them. But the first case in the Mishnah, which is what we've been talking about this whole time, was where there's no actual monetary claim. And therefore, you can actually sue the guy, but you have a point. You hired a guy, now he canceled on you. What are you going to do? So you see that the Mishnah will say a statement, giving us the ending of a conclusion, giving us the ruling, and the ruling is that you cannot file a legal claim. But the Gemara goes into a whole analysis, trying to figure out what the scenario is. What is the Mishnah talking about? And it's really, really fascinating to see this type of logic. There was once a guy, he was on a young man was on a train, and he goes over to an older gentleman, middle-aged gentleman, and he says, "Excuse me, sir, what time is it?" And the guy says, "It's not happening." Whoa. What's going on? So the older gentleman says, I apologize. I was just going in my head. You're going to ask me the time. I'm going to tell you the time. We're going to start a little discussion. You're going to say, where are you going? And I'm going to say, I'm going to this and this town. You're going to say, I'm also going to that town. So then you're going to sit next to me, and we're going to talk, the whole way. And then I'm going to feel obligated to invite you for dinner. And you're going to come to my house. And then you're going to notice that I have a daughter. And you're a handsome guy. So you guys are going to fall in love. And then you're going to ask me for my daughter's hand in marriage. And there is no way that I'm letting my daughter marry a guy who can't afford a watch. So sometimes the Talmud will go into a whole long scenario trying to figure out what the ending is. Sometimes just to arrive at a conclusion. But I want to end off just with one point. And that is that this is all the style of the Babylonian Talmud, what we call Talmud Bavli. As we mentioned last week, we spoke about the history of the Talmud Bavli, but in the Talmud Yerushalmi, it's very, very different. It's very straightforward. Very, very straightforward. Look, if you remember our whole discussion, which we spoke about the evening of Passover. On the door?
No.
What?
A ringer that sounded like you're on an airplane.
It almost sounds like my doorbell. Put your seatbelts on. The captain has put the seatbelt sign on. Please take your seats. So as we mentioned in previous lessons about this whole discussion about the evening of Passover, you're allowed to eat, you're not allowed to eat, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, the different opinions. You know how the Talmud Yerushalmi says it? It's very simple. Look, read text 6, page 195. You'll honestly find this funny. The text 6, page 195. This is from the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud. On the eve of Passover, from close to the time of Mincha, from close to the time for reciting the Mincha prayers, etc., and it goes to the whole Mishnah. The Gemara says, our Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda. Done. That's the whole discussion. That's it. So look, the Babylonian Talmud will read into the Mishnah, read into the words, say, okay, could it be Rabbi Yossi? Could it be Rabbi Yehuda? There's some challenges that proves back and forth. The Jerusalem Talmud is just like, straight up, it's Rabbi Yehuda, done. And end of discussion. So a lot of times, it seems so nice. It's so much easier. Let's leave the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, on the shelf. Let's go study the Talmud Yerushalmi. Let's go study the Jerusalem Talmud. It seems a lot easier. But the truth is that in order to reach a better understanding of something, you have to go through those discussions. You have to go through that whole analysis, and then you gain a better clarity of the entire discussion. Look at page 195, text 7. This is from the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud. Is this what the Babylonian Talmud says about itself? It's talking about itself. It says like this. It quotes a verse from Eicha, from Lamentations. He set me down in darkness as those forever dead. Rabbi Yirmiyah said this refers to the Babylonian Talmud. In other words, the Babylonian Talmud, there's a certain lack of light. There's a certain lack of clarity within the Babylonian Talmud. Because it wasn't in Israel was the center of Jewish knowledge. Everything was straightforward. In Bavel, in Babylonia, a lot of it was unclear. They had to look and text and bring sources and quote other rabbis and they had to discuss it and back and forth. It was like walking in darkness. But what ends up happening is that when you reach the light at the end of the tunnel, the light is so much greater, so much clearer than if you just had the light to begin with. And that's the value in studying the Babylonian Talmud. And this is why Jews have studied Babylonian Talmud for years. In fact, anytime anyone will ever quote the Talmud, it's talking about the Babylonian Talmud. No one quotes the Talmud Yerushalmi. We don't even study the Jerusalem Talmud in yeshiva. Because it doesn't get you a full clarity of the entire sugya, the entire concept, the entire discussion. You want to understand the discussion? You got to do the whole Jerusalem Talmud. Our discussion that we just talked about tonight, you know what the Jerusalem Talmud says? The Jerusalem Talmud says that we're talking about a case where a guy hired workers and he told them that it'll take 5 days. And it was really a job that will take 10 days. So they complained and they said, hey, you told us it was a 5-day job. Really, it's a 10-day job. So they have a right to complain, but they can't actually sue him for it because, like, whatever, I don't know, 10 days, 5 days. So they can't sue him, but they have a right to complain. That's the end. That's the whole Jerusalem Talmud. But if you read that, you don't get a full clarity of the whole scenario, of all the different scenarios, of all the possibilities and the different, you can imagine going through the Talmud, you reach a better understanding. And if you look in the back of your page, back of your book, not the back of your book, the end of your, this lesson, page 200, there's some fantastical cases that the Talmud Bavli will quote, which could not have possibly happened in the times of the Talmud. For example, cases of a flying tower. Today we'll call that an airplane. Or cases of a virgin giving birth. Right? Today that's very possible with medical procedures. With medical procedures and what's it called, a surrogate, where you could implant a seed. There could be a woman who never was with a man, but still get pregnant. It's possible. And the Talmud talks about it. The Talmud talks about the transported fetus, temporary death. All these scenarios there's no way they could have possibly known a lot about it in the times of the Talmud, and yet the Talmud talks about it because the Talmud will bring every possible scenario and case, and it discusses everything. So, and the truth is that's with everything in life, and I'll end with this concept that in life, if you want to reach a clarity in life, sometimes you got to go through a dark challenge. The best businessman are the people who had the worst experiences. So with that, we'll end, and we'll see you next week for our last and final lesson number 6, and we're going to be talking about the Talmud until today. The Talmud until today. How has the Talmud really lived on past the conclusion of the compilation of the Talmud? So we'll see you guys next week, 7:30 Tuesday.